Right, hello and welcome back to another episode of Cars and Engineering. In this episode I'm going to be fitting a set of BC Racing coilovers to the Polo. Stay tuned. Right, now as I said in the intro, these are some BC Racing coilovers with solid top mounts. They will be installed onto the Polo today and I'm going to bring you guys along with me for the journey. These are, as I've said before, BC Racing coilovers. These come highly recommended. They come with solid top plates or solid top mounts, so you get a little bit more steering control. They have it's called a pillow ball mount or a pillow ball mount with fully adjustable dampening as well. I think it's got 30 ways from soft to hard, and you've got like a little locking collar as well. You can lock it in, stop it from moving. But that's for the front. These are for the rear, and you also have these rear height adjustable springs because the rear has a live axle, so that goes in there. It's what I've seen so far. It's a really good kit. You have to use the standard top mounts on the rears, but I bought some brand new ones. And if you remember in a previous video, which I'll link up in the top right hand corner, I had trouble removing one of the bolts holding this onto the chassis. That is this one here. I removed that myself yesterday because that was a 2-hour ordeal. I couldn't use any flames on it, I couldn't use any blowtorches on it because it is like 2 inches away from the filler neck, and obviously you don't want to mix fuel with fire because something will blow up, and I quite like living. So yeah, I had to use a static tractor on that, get that out. But as I said, the rears also have adjustability as well on this little thing here. See on here, if it thingies on here, it says hard or soft, so when it's in the car you can jack it up and get your fingers in there and do it. But yeah, I've lined the actual eye hole up at the top of the strut. I've already put this one on for demonstration purposes. I need to put the other one on. With the fronts, I believe it has a 6 kilo spring on the front and a 4 on the back, and it takes 6 kilograms of force to compress that spring by 1 inch. That's what I've read anyway, it could be wrong. And then obviously in the back it's 4 kilos of pressure to get the spring to compress by 1 inch. So it's soft on the rear, but we've got the rear anti-roll bar to make it a little bit stiffer. But at the moment that is set to the stiffest setting. So what I'm going to do is, because I've got to take it off anyway, or I've got to loosen it off to get to the actual bolt to go for the bottom here. The rear should be pretty easy for that reason. But as I was saying, the anti-roll bar is on the stiffest setting at the moment. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to dial it back a little bit to probably soft or maybe medium, until I can get the feel for what the coilovers feel like. They've all been set height-wise. I've measured them all height-wise. They're all the same length from bottom to bottom, or from the actual seats themselves upwards and down, so that the car should sit at the same ride height all the way around immediately. I have taken measurements from the car already on the standard suspension, and the actual height of the actual car itself is all over the place. Let me get my notes and I'll show you. Yeah, so I have my notes. The front right is sitting at 210mm, the rear right is sitting at 260mm, the front rear left is sitting at 275mm, and the front left is sitting at 290mm, which is like, that's not ideal. But obviously the front right is where the driver sits, well, in the UK anyway, so I expected that to be a little bit lower, but there's an 80mm difference there, and that's quite substantial, especially like when you're setting up geometry and tracking and whatnot. So hopefully when this is on, this should have the car sitting at a pretty level playing field, and then after an alignment and maybe some geometry setup, it should handle like it's on rails. I'm sort of looking at some new tyres as well, some new options for the Monzas, and maybe even some new alloys, but that'll be a little bit further down the line, because obviously we've got the coilovers, we've got the engine projects in the background, there's money being spent left, right and centre, so I'm just trying to develop a overall well-rounded car. The old suspension shot, I blew a rear gas strut recently, that's why I've upgraded to the coilovers. This was a project that was on the back burner as such. I didn't need it just yet, but I thought, well, at the end of the day, if the suspension has had it on the rear end, it's not too long until the front starts going and this starts going. So I thought, right, if I replace the entire suspension first of all, then I know that I don't have to come back to this and mess about a bit. It looks like a fairly simple job. Nothing ever is on the outside, or when you get into it, looking in, you think, oh, that's pretty good, but I think this is going to be a bit of a pain in the arse. The rear should be okay. It's the front I'm concerned about, because it's rusty as hell under there. Even though I've changed a lot of components, I'm still expecting some fight back from the car. And that's what turns a 3-hour job into a 6-hour job. So yeah, I'm sort of running away with myself a little bit here. These are the coilovers, that's the front, that's the rear, that's the new top mount. As you can see, I've got another one here. I'm going to put the front ones away from now. I might split this video into two. I might do the rear and then do the front video separately, because I don't want it to be an hour long and people get bored. Like, there's only so much watching people bolt stuff to a car you can watch. So I'll try and be as informative as I can. This is the first time for me in fitting coilovers to a car, actually, with all this adjustment. If you have any advice for the actual geometry setup, or how hard the front should be, or how hard the back should be, blah 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 blah, then do let me know. I will be running, the one thing I've researched, I will be running slight positive rake. Now, positive rake is if the car's sitting like that. Positive rake is the car sort of faces down a little bit, the front is lower than the back, only by millimeters. We're not talking inches here. It's not going to look like a drag racer, but I've been told that makes handling on front wheel drive cars somewhat better with coilovers, because when you accelerate, the car will try and rock back anyway, and it should sort of level itself out. Not that I'm going to be doing that many launch starts, if any, but from my research so far, that's what I've read. But this is all adjustable stuff. I've got some C-spanners in the kit. Obviously, there's another one of them in the kit, there's another one of them in the kit, and there's another one of them in the kit. So yeah, let's get on with it. I'm going to put that away and put the rear spring away, because I need to get another top mount on the other damper. Right, so this is the other damper. It's actually a 14mm nut on top. So M8's normally 13mm, so that's a bit weird. It's also a nylock, so it's got like a nylon band in it, so once you do it up, it's supposed to prevent it from coming off. It will be torqued up to 40Nm or 45Nm, but the key point here is to get it lined up with the eye hole on the bottom here, so that the mount somewhat lines up like that. It's hard to get the camera because it's quite close. I'm just going to start the thread. I'm not going to use any Loctite on this application, because at the end of the day it is a strut. Got a new Draper torque wrench. I've only used it once, but it's pretty good. So let's get to about 45Nm. Two, 3, 4, 5. Right, so that's at the 45Nm. I'm going to use my adjustable spanner to sit. I'm going to sit here on this shank. I do believe that's what it's for. I could be wrong. Right, it's just starting to get tight. So before I do anything, I want to make sure it lines up. Looks pretty good to me. It's mainly so that lines up with that, but if it's a little bit off center, it doesn't really matter, as long as, because you can twist that. So right, so I'm just going to make sure this clicks properly. It's all lined up. There we go. So that's all torqued up. That is straight to the eye hole down here. It can be moved a little bit. It's just trying to get that straight with that. It's somewhat there. It's not great, but it's not going to matter much when it's on the car. Now, another little thing I'm going to be doing to this car, or doing to these coilovers I should say, is this boot is sort of doing what it wants to do. So literally just going to get a cable tie, put it around this boot, and I'll make sure it's all the way down first and seated properly. So that now stops it from going all over the place, and using some side cutters, it's gone. So other than that, I've now just got to take everything outside and get the car ready up in the air to remove the old stuff. Right, so as you can see here, we've got everything laid out next to the car. We've got the C-spanners, both sizes, one coilover, two coilover, the rear dampeners, and then the rear springs. Next thing to do is to use the new jack and get the car in the air. Right, so now, as you can see, the car is in the air. We can access the lower bolts, and we can also access the anti-roll bar bolts. Now, I believe I made a mistake last time, because I'd done them bolts up while the car was in the air. You're supposed to let it drop down, and then when the weight of the suspension is on the actual anti-roll bar, you're meant to then torque them up, or do them up tight. Made a mistake last time, going to correct it this time. But yeah, it's up in the air, so you can take the wheels off, and then I can access the top mount and then undo the bottom mount. Right, so as you can see, this is the blown up rear dampener. This is the spring. You can see just down there, I've braced the lower torsion beam with another jack. So I've got a jack there. So you've got a jack there holding the car up with the actual stands. That was the bolt. That was the bolt in question, the one I had to remove yesterday. So it's been replaced with a new one. I've got 3 other new ones to replace that one and the 2 on the other side. So let's take that out, get rid of this old damper. Obviously the beam's not just going to drop when I take this out, which it would otherwise. And then I can get to the spring as well. But what I'm going to do first of all is take out both dampeners and then take out both springs, and then I can fit the new ones back in. Right, so these are 2 16mm nuts. I'm just going to crack them off. That one was loose because of, like I said yesterday, that was the one I replaced temporarily. As you can see, it's just a sort of, I think it's an M12 maybe, not sure. And for the other one, this one should be a little bit stiffer because it's been out recently. Probably should do the sensible thing, get the Ryobi on it. And that is that out. As you can see, that's not fit for purpose anymore. That's now. So I'm going to go and disconnect to the other side, and then, like, as I said, we can drop the torsion bar down and change the springs. Right, so as you can see here, this is the anti-roll bar kit installed onto the actual lower strut. This is a 8mm Allen wrench, or Allen key, and on the other side there's a 17mm bolt. Basically, you just got to crack that off, and then I can remove the entire suspension strut from the car, as I've done over here. there's the bolt, there's the strut, and now it's purely just dangling there, held in by the clamps there. As I said, just got to get the other one out, then we can get them springs out. And because most of this hardware is relatively new, it's coming off quite easy. But this should now just pull out. And just like that. Right, so here are the old dampeners and the new dampeners with the adjustableness, both on height and on actual dampening. You can see that the factory ones have had it. The new ones I'm going to set to medium, so they're going to be about 15 notches in out of 30. So it'll be a good happy medium, I think, or I might do 10, I don't know. I'm going to get them on the car, see what they feel like, and then adjust them from there. But yeah, you can see that the factory ones have had it, they've seen better days. The newer ones obviously look a lot better. So let's start to get these on the car. Now I've got to remove these springs. At the moment that jack there is taking the actual weight of the arm itself, or the rear torsion beam. So I need to just drop this jack a little bit to be able to get these springs out. And as you can see, they're quite hefty boys, but the new ones in there should sit lovely and comfortably. As you can see, that's one there. It's out of its little cup. This is the second one. Just need to wiggle it down a little bit. It's hard when you've got a camera in your hand. There we go. There's one. There's two. There's the cup. And give that a little clean with the brake cleaner, and then we can fit the new springs and the new dampeners. Now that's the little cup for on there to hold the spring in. This is your lower adjustability. Got your little cup obviously, but then this adjusts the ride height on the rear. Now the height adjuster is mounted on the bottom of the spring. The bottom of the spring is here. The writing should be facing upwards. So that sort of sits in the cup on the bottom, and then the spring sits on that sits on the top, and then it all sits as a unit like that. Simple as that. Now it's going to be a bit of a pain in the arse because where it's been lowered quite a bit, as the bar goes up, it's going to have to sit like that. So I think I'm going to have to retrofit the dampener, and as I lift the dampener up to do the bottom bolt, I'm going to have to then locate the spring. So for now, I'm going to leave them out. I'm going to place them under the car so they're easy to get the dampener in itself. And as I said, as I lift this up, it will locate. I can see it locating, then I can tighten everything up. Right, so I have the new strut here. I also have two new bolts. Now instead of Loctite on these, I'm going to put some copper grease, purely because they can rust in, and once they're rusted in, they are extremely difficult to get out, and they're going to be torqued up, so there's no reason for them to back off, and there's no heat here as such. There's no source of heat. It's just literally a bit of chassis, so it shouldn't need Loctite. So literally a little bit of copper grease on these bolts. I'm going to put them in. I'm not going to torque them up yet. I'm going to get everything in loose. I'll torque up the top two, drop the car down, get everything sort of hand tight, and then torque it up on the floor so the suspension can settle into itself. So I'm just going to line that up a little bit there. first of all, I'm going to set this. Okay, it's on soft, so I need to do. I'm going to do 10 clicks towards hard, so it's about 1/3 of the way there. So let's start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right, so that's now set on 10. At least you get the bolts prepped. It's purely just a little bit of copper grease, nothing too mental. This is what I'm doing, you might do it another way. But yeah, just a little bit, so as it goes through it we'll push it up the threads anyway. I'm just going to put a tiny little bit on this mounting face so that don't rust into oblivion. So that's one done. I'm going to do the other one and then we can get the strut in. Right, I'm going to clean the holes out with some brake cleaner before we start. You'll notice as well that I've nicked the top cap from the old ones. It's just going to protect the bolt and the actual threads itself from rust or anything like that. Got a bolt ready with some crap on it. Going to get this in position, try not to smack into anything. Right, there's one in position. By a few threads. I'm going to get the other one as well. And then get the ratchet and slowly bring it up. Right, now they're in there hand tight, they're not torqued up or anything, so the strut can wiggle a little bit, but you'll see underneath that there's quite a lot of leg room to play with. It's at least 4 or 5 inches higher than it was before. So it's going to be quite low on the ground, I expect. But yeah, that is the brand new top mount. You can see that's the adjuster. It is on 10. I might write 10 up here so I know what it's on. Brand new bolts. There's your gator, or your actual dust boot. There's your new shock, and you can see how much lower it is from that. So you can twist it a little bit, there is a bit of play on it. But we now need to bring this up. Once I get the other side, of course, and to get this up, I need to have the mounting hardware go through it again. Before that happens, I need to locate this spring in here, so then everything sits properly. So I'm going to go and do the other. I'm going to go and do the other side, and then I will come back to this, and then, like I said, locate the spring and go from there. Right, so this was the problem child side with that really rusty hole. Again, I'm going to brake clean the holes out, so they're as clean as I can probably get them. The bolts are going to get copper grease once again, and then I can get the strut in there semi-tight. Right, the bolts are all greased up again, or lubed up, whatever you would call them. The strut can now locate up here. Right, now I have to get the spring in and attempt to locate it as the bar goes up. Right, that should be right there for the moment. Just need to locate the other side too. Right, so slight change in plan. What I've had to do is I've had to back these off, these big 16 mils, so that can drop the strut down more so it can locate in the bottom bolt hole. So now they're like that, I'll change the camera angle so you can see, so that this can actually go into here. I've used a jack to bring up the torsion bar on either side. That side's all in and it's bolted up loosely. Other than that, this now needs to just go in here. The spring is located. That bolt's got to go through here and then be done up and torqued up when it goes back down on the floor. But like I said, I've had to back off them two top 16mm bolts so this can drop down a little bit, because if this jack goes too high, it starts lifting the actual car off the axle stands. So I'm lifting it as high as it possibly can go. I'm then using a hammer on this, a rubber hammer, to then locate that. I'm also using a trick with a drift or a punch where it's tapered. You can line the hole up and the taper will match the holes together, so that it'll be easy to actually put the fastener through. So let's do that and then I will show you the results. Now this is a little trick with the tapered punch. The holes aren't quite aligned yet, so it's literally put the punch in, and it will align them all. Then you simply pull the punch back out with one hand while you hold the camera to make life even simpler for yourself. And then get the fastener, which you should also have taken the bolt off of, unlike me. Put it in the hole and it should line up, but it's not. But you get the general gist. It requires two hands. It's a pain in the arse when it don't work. So let me just put you down here. Right, so that is the bottom fastener in. I can now do the ones up on the top, and then this is basically done for the rear end. Just got to do some measurements when the car actually goes down to make sure it's sitting both at the same level. All of these have been measured, so they're all the same length, so it should sit at the same height, but we will see. As you can see, these are the top ones. These are the 16mm. One has actually fallen out, so I need to get that back into its seating. Actually, first of all, I think I'll get the other one up a little bit more, because that must be near the end of itself. Now it's got to get the other one back in. Again, using hand tools, because I don't want to strip or damage these bolts or these threads in this chassis. Right, so they aren't tight yet. They are just done to hand tight or tool tight. I need to set the actual stiffness on this. It's all the way to soft, so it's 10 clicks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right, so that's set to 10. The spring is seated very well. I need to drop the pressure off of the jack and off of the actual axle or the actual torsion bar itself. Once that's done, I can put some protection on these threads here. Just a tiny little bit of copper grease just to stop them from going bad, mainly around the actual adjuster itself. But no, they're both set to the same height, they're both set to the same dampering adjustment. So now I literally got to remove the jack, put the wheels back on and see how she sits on the rear. It won't need any Loctite. I could probably put some on there, but there's no point. It's going to be torqued up and it's under compression anyway. But there's no real source of heat coming towards here. These rear brakes on the Taurus were being crap on Mark IV platform. That's why they will be upgraded soon to a 256mm vented disc at the back. So please subscribe for that one. It will be down here somewhere. But other than that, I'm going to change. This is now in the stiffest setting. This anti-roll bar. This is stiff. This is soft. This is medium. I'm going to change it from stiff to soft, I believe, because obviously now we've got rock hard coilovers on the top. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to change them quickly, just off camera, and then torque everything up, put the wheels on, and then go from there. Right, so everything's done up, that's been torqued up. I've changed the anti-roll bar actually to the middle setting. That's not been torqued up, that is loose still. I can still back that off. When that's down on the floor, that will be torqued up. Same goes on that side, or this side, the right hand side, the driver's side. It's on medium again on the anti-roll bar. That's been torqued up. The two top 16mm have been torqued up as well on both sides, and as you can see, the spring's sitting nicely in the cup. Other than that, we are all done on the rear. It's time to get the wheels on, time to get rid of the axle stands, and then drop it down to see how the rear looks. So that is the car now on the floor. There's not a lot of reference to go by, but it is sitting lower. I will get the tape measure out and measure again to see what the after specs are. Well, it's time to actually torque up the rear anti-roll bar, and then I'll be concentrating on the front today. But I think I will split that into a separate video, because this is probably about half an hour long as it is. Probably maybe longer, I don't know. It's been about 3 hours filming. And it normally equates to about half an hour video, so I'll torque up them rear anti-roll bar bolts, and then I will end the video, and then we'll go from there. Right, so there you go then. There's a suspension all fully fitted and torqued up and ready to go. The anti-roll bar has been adjusted. The car is sitting a bit better. It's going to be taken for a test drive to let it settle, and then from there we will know roughly where it's sitting, and I'll be able to do some more measurements. But that's it for part 1. Please like and subscribe for part 2, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.